Hello everyone. The Climate Change COP24 is coming up soon in the next week. We have prepared a short video for you with some highlights of the main elements of the discussion in the COP24. But first of all, I would like to say that the Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015, and by 2016, the government set the goal of adopting a series of implementing decisions, which is basically the Paris rule book, by COP24. So that's why the COP24 is important, and they will come up with this outcome. So now in this short video, I have invited some colleagues to share with you the main elements of the discussion at COP24.
So what we're looking to see from the negotiations at COP24 are important decisions related to the guidance that's provided for countries on nationally determined contributions. So those are referred to as NDCs, and they determine what goes into a country's contribution towards climate action. I think that we'll see important outcomes on the guidance related to the information that should be in those NDCs. And the purpose of that information should be to help parties produce future NDCs that are ambitious, produce real climate action, are transparent, and follow the other guidelines that have been produced under the Paris Agreement, as well as the guidelines that we're expecting to see come out of the Paris rulebook at this meeting. Additionally, we would like the NDCs to include guidance around accounting. So we're expecting decisions around the accounting methodologies and approaches that countries can use to recognize their climate actions. And finally, we're encouraging countries to consider natural climate solutions or nature-based solutions to climate change that include activities in the land sector, such as forests, peatlands, and mangroves and other coastal ecosystems that both store carbon and produce mitigation benefits, as well as protect communities from climate impacts and help build resilience in vulnerable communities. So these are a couple of the outcomes that we're expecting to see under NDC guidance.
One of the key features of the Paris Agreement is the ability of countries to transfer greenhouse gas emissions from one country to be claimed toward the mitigation goal in the nationally determined contribution of another country. The terms of these emission transfers and the transfer mechanisms are currently being negotiated by countries. At COP24, countries will continue discussions on guidance for how to engage in cooperative approaches through internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, which is known as Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Countries are likely to agree on the basic facets of this guidance at COP24. However, several technical elements of the guidance will likely need to be discussed as part of a 2019 work plan to hopefully be agreed at COP25 next year. In our view, it's essential that this guidance ensures that emission reductions from nature are eligible to transfer, and that the rules of these international mechanisms ensure high environmental integrity and no double counting of reductions.
Under this mandate, both subsidiary bodies under the Convention will work together to address issues related to agriculture through workshops, expert meetings, as well as working with constituted bodies under the Convention, and taking into consideration the vulnerabilities of agriculture to climate change, as well as approaches to address food security. In this COP decision, 6 areas of work were identified, but this does not mean that these will be the only areas of work where the negotiation will focus. The idea is that if there is additional areas of work identified, these can be included under the negotiation process. Also, during the negotiations in Bonn last May, parties agreed on a roadmap that establishes how they will work until 2020. including workshops and sending submissions prior to these workshops by parties and observer organizations. Considering what was approved under this roadmap on December 3rd in Katowice, Poland during COP24, the first workshop will take place. This first workshop will address modalities for implementation of the results of the workshops that will take place until 2020, as well as any additional issues that could be identified during this process. During this workshop, constituted bodies under the Convention will participate.
When adopting the Paris Agreement, Paris also included the Decision 135 to create the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform. Then by COP23, Paris also decided the 3 elements of the platform. The first one, the knowledge exchange. The second one, the capacity for engagement. And the third one, climate change, policies and actions. For COP24, we have 2 main priorities. The first one is the establishment of the facilitative working group. So far, the discussion is 7 members from Paris, 7 members from indigenous peoples, and 3 members from local communities, according to the latest discussion. But this is something that they are going to make a decision at COP24. The second decision is about the modalities for the development of a work plan. Then we have other elements that came up in the previous discussion that is going to be decided at COP. So we are expecting to have a decision and initiate the implementation of the platform